Chili here with Serious Talisman, and this is a different reading to the reading that I was bringing earlier. Um, it's not really different, but it is. I'm not talking about that planet, okay? Um, can be that the ingress to Saturn, alongside the end of Uranus in Taurus and the Uranus ingress to Gemini, it may bring big explosions in banks, but also businesses, workplaces, particularly the working sector, the business sector. I see that is subjected to kind of like a bombing. Um, I'm not saying World Trade Centers, but I was. It's not impossible, something like that, but something more like we seem to cross a certain threshold where power was used to control over people's transactions in a way that annihilates them from, let's say, trade or banking. And I'm always very cautious when I say these things because um, I definitely went through where people talking about the shadow work or thinking about, oh, let's say if a person has been having expenses that they would otherwise not do, then there can come, let's say, credit block or something like that. But looking a layer underneath, this war is about zero rape society, and it's not about being more financially responsible. Okay, it's about, and many people that left, let's say, violent relationships or workplaces or communities ran into financial violence against them. Um, Now, what I'm saying that this could cross a certain threshold where there would be explosions. You know, kind of like ICE. They raided this house, they raided that house, they raided that house. Then Minnesota is outside in the street. At first they're singing, but it won't be singing no more. Okay? um, the and this is simply because those issues pertain to survival, but what's the underlying factor of the economic factor is the zero rape society. By the way, even people that were trafficked, sometimes before they came out of trafficking, they would set a very big price, very high price, because that was their way of manifesting the boundary. And I'm feeling like we're going to see the zero rape society fights where people feel helpless about that. They're going to set very big financial boundaries. And so if people, let's say, escaped a violent relationship and then, I don't know, they got bank problems because somebody knew somebody of the person that was trying to traffic them, they're going to set that boundary through calling out the financial action as a crime against humanity. But that crimes against humanities are punishable by death. Okay, rape is also a crime against humanity, which is punishable by death. By death. Okay, if people don't rape, nobody gets. How should I say that? Two ways to get in death. One is artificial, where a person was raped and then basically they would need, I don't know, they would try to either compensate by shopping or that they would get into expenses because of things that they needed when they were trying to heal. The other one is paying to extortion cults. So that debt is going to call out that debt. Okay, the people that are right now living in like zero rape situation, um, they either are awakening to the world, the fact that most of the world isn't, um, and most people that are talking about, never complain about money because it shows that you're not good in it. Basically, it shows that the not complaining about money is showing that you've been rubbing shoulders with Epstein. Actually, there is a shout out that I have, other than Lila Sefa. Um, there is this lady, and I was trying to watch her video. No, it's not going to show me all. Okay, this is rather new. No, it's not showing that. There's a lady that actually, usually I disagree with most of what she has to say because she's kind of enabling the elite. Okay? But this time she was thinking to erase that video, and this time she came up with a video titled, and I didn't manage to watch the video yet, but the video was titled that the Epstein files are simply the norm of the elite. And this is true, even not the elite. Okay, if I go in Israel and I can overhear in any public place a conversation of men talking next to their wives, next to their children, about how what stays, what happens in Thailand stays in Thailand, meaning the raping of the children. You know, and then there is a war, and Israel is accused of genocide. And it started someplace, and as the normalization of rape that happens also within the country. So when that's normalized, then the money line is going to be a big confrontation that will have the potential to be fiery. Okay? There is no point to go to work if a person could be having issues with drawing the money from work because somebody is trying to traffic them and they weren't complying at the workplace or at the residence. Somebody was trying to siphon their life energy through rape or torture or mockery ritual, and at that point, there are Googleplex people dealing with that problem, and my prediction is that something will cross the threshold, which means that banks will explode, that businesses will explode. By the way, nothing that I talk about is new. There were already explosions, there were, you know, things like that were happening, and it was about the fact that there was too much control over the individual. Okay, they're trying to, a person, let's say, whether they go to work or they have a disability or whatnot, they come to get the money, they need to schedule a date with the bank. Somebody like the person that was the violent person, they get to trade freely, travel freely, and so on and so forth. The victim doesn't. That's gonna go big boom. Okay, it's planes crashing, it's banks collapsing, it's businesses exploding. It is, but that's the truth. I was making a good prophecy earlier. I mean, good for the people that are not with those. So, um, but the Saturn, either the Saturn ingress to Aries, which is very soon, it's going to be February 12th or so, or February 8th. I've already begun to feel the heat of Aries. I know that sidereally it's still in Pisces, it's still in the first decan of Pisces even. Not the first decan, the middle decan. Yeah, the middle decan of Pisces. No, the first decan of Pisces. Okay, sidereally is the first part of Pisces. Um, and people refer to that as the cracking of the egg. Okay, where a newborn is born. So whether we see it tropical or sidereal, this is where the egg cracks and the baby is born. So tropical is like Aries, the water breaks, the baby is born. Sidereally, the egg cracks and life is born. So the primordial water become the water, when the water breaks. So that is same decan of Pisces. So um, birthing, okay, and this is exactly what I see collapsing because those structures do not support life, and everybody been calling for life. Okay, rape is antithetical to life. There are videos of people that were born by rape. People can watch their testimonies. There's a reason why my mother would see how it goes for other couples that are not married for love. And what happens when the children are not born from love? Ken. And it had affected, because the world was surrounded by that, it had affected her parental experience and my experience in life. Just like during the Me Too, I had to be 2 years away from my mom because she was just watching the news thinking, oh yeah, those are the ladies that climb up the ladder through the panties where somebody was trying to traffic her daughter. Of course I cannot talk to a person that commenting that on the news. And so I walked out. 2 years. Parent doesn't know what happens with a child. What happens? Why? They don't care about me. Why? They left it. How does one explain that? Mm. And then, of course, the parents usually behind the back blame the children. They're not grateful, not this, not that. Don't fucking support rape and human trafficking. And here's the thing, it ain't like they didn't try to do that to my parents. That's why she quit working. She tried to open her own businesses. Everybody knows what they try to do to people who open businesses. Connecting the dots. That's trauma. That's the dissociation that challenges us to connect the dots. And so something about either Saturn ingress, Uranus at the end of Taurus, the eclipse itself, which I don't know if the eclipse, like I was watching Ernst Wilhelm about the eclipse, and he says the planet to do with friendship. So I don't know if that's connected, but it is an eclipse on the decan that's associated with the abalgity of wealth redistribution. No, we're not talking about that. Can't say it. What is okay? The eclipse is 28 degrees Aquarius. It's not 2 degrees away from Deneb Algety, but it is the decan that is of Deneb Algety. And by the way, before the eclipse, I was having the discovery of a planet that has life in it. I don't know if it will be discovered around the eclipse or something, um, because we are, yes, less than 20 days, less than 10 days to the eclipse. Um, okay, like I wasn't associating that with the eclipse. Venus is squaring Uranus and is about to ingress to the degree of the eclipse. Mercury being there. but um, I feel that something is going to go boom around the business sector. Now, of course, Uranus into Gemini, labor unions, and so on and so forth. What I want to remind people is that underneath all these finances is the zero rape society. People want to see the any structure that's to do this. A lot of people say, um, we had deceased Tom Jacobs used to say, money is energy, is money is energy, and it's the energy. Anything that wants to be money needs to support life on its energy and consecration ritual. And any structures of that energy need to support life. If they don't, whether it's business sector, banking, um, the real estate aspect and business aspect of housing, because it's Aries, it's business. If it doesn't support life, it's going to go boom. It's going to collapse into itself. And also with Neptune in Aries, some of us, our anger is subdued by miracles. Okay? I was supposed to receive a refund, and the refund wasn't exactly the sum that they were saying, and so on and so forth. And then I was walking back home, and there was a cafe, and I was walking behind the cafe. There was a tree with these Chinese oranges, the miniature oranges, and it was so full that it was an act of stewardship to take those from the tree. It didn't belong to it. It was in a parking lot. There wasn't any private territory. People that are in US, it's undecipherable for you. Doesn't work like that outside of the US. Um, okay, so it was not an agricultural zone. Let's just put it that way. So I was speaking so much from that, and I'm like, well, that's abundance. It's like almost like Neptune was showing me, hey, that's that's the money you're really looking for. Here is the energy you're really, here's the nourishment you're really looking for, right around that coffee where you couldn't buy yourself a cup of coffee or even sit there because it's too fucking crowded. And I also enjoyed picking. And by the way, I picked so much, and there's still so much on the tree. It was that bombarded, and nobody was noticing that. It was this hidden wealth. So I kind of feel that we're going to be angry, but we also need to be attuned to the ways in which abundance does show itself, and yet also assert the boundaries, because we're not making a transaction that's impossible. Okay, people are not going to like that. Sex work is an impossible energy transaction. What do I mean by that? Money is energy, is money is energy. We don't pay money to hurt people. It's not even about, because this war is so much about the zero rape society, because that's at the core issue of everything, then this issue comes up a lot. But it can even be, by other means. Um, I don't pay money to harm people. Let's say, if we talk about the tree, okay? If we talk about the tree was so filled with fruit that it needed people to pick from the tree. I had to use my energy, yes, to receive that abundance. Okay, I had to pick from the tree. And also I saw that it is that if I had to, let's say, work in that, I could not even finish that one tree without my feet hurting, or I would need a chair, or which shows us how irrational agriculture also is. People used to have trees in their own backyard. And even then, there was a time where I was thinking to offer people to pick from their trees that were filled with fruit. And that's the stewardship. That's a lot of the fruits that are good that need to be consumed. We don't need to sacrifice to have the fruit of the tree, and we don't need to pay the tree to harm the tree. Even if we would pay for the food or something like that, not even that. There are people, okay, if that tree just grows and we pick from the tree when it is ample with fruits, then it is a stewardship to the tree that we pick some of the fruits. And it makes it easier for the tree to continue to have its own ecosystem. Okay? That's economy. And by the way, the things that we are most needing are going to be found in abundance in nature. Okay, if I was moving to a property and there were thistles growing there, that was something that I needed to clean the liver, to clear the endocrine system. Okay, and around COVID. Um, and then I was living in another place, and then there were those just small. I think it's called chrysanthemums. Okay, the chrysanthemums, the amaranth, and the mallow, and the nettle. Then I learned to pick the nettle fresh. Now here's the thing: when I do a body butter or a salve for me, I can pick the nettle fresh after the rain and put it in the oil. Is this gonna be some soil around it? Probably. Am I gonna die from it? Probably not. It's very healthy. Okay? Because I was meant to do that. It was not meant to be harvested industrially. And usually abundant are growing naturally exactly the plants that we need. And plants can also connect us emotionally to a place. So there's a lot that's showing us the abundance that we do have. And any anything that wants to be economy has to align with that structure. Because anything that isn't in the coming years or decades is going to be transmuted and dissolved. Oh, simply so that we can support life. Again, going back to the previous readings, we have been calling for life for so long, and now the things that actually support life arrive. So if there is restriction on certain currency, two things to think about. One, where am I needing to consume more of what supports life and less of what doesn't? Two, how is that leading to masses of people negating the structures that undermine a zero rape society? Because Aries, we're going to get angry, we're going to get frustrated. Thinking about a baby is born. What happens after? It cries. Whenever it cries, so that there will be water, so that there will be. The baby can't move. It can move itself, but it cannot grab water or grab. So it cries. And then everybody's saying Neptune around that deacon. Nobody's coming to save you. It's like, but that's the baby. Doesn't need saving. It needs food. It needs care. It needs the basis. Now, of course, those things are done to the people that as babies didn't have that basis because they were born by cloning or born by rape or born into a world where there were attempts to hack their nervous system as infants and the nervous system of their parents. There were generations of parents that didn't even hug their children. And then there were parents that were trying to hug the child while they themselves need a hug. Okay, those oscillations. And way worse things. I'm not even talking about abuse. I'm talking about the things that went missing because people didn't even think about it. Yeah, what we didn't know, we didn't know. Neptune is what we didn't know, we didn't know. So if we see restrictions with Saturn Aries, we need to think of not about lifting the restriction alone, but really changing our own structure so that the lift of the restriction will support a sovereign self. And that because what we're seeking is not a lift of restriction, but to completely invent or reinvent the structure. Okay, tropically 0 degree Aries, sidereally the birth of the egg, completely new life. Structure needs to support new life, and new life is not to be enslaved. Saturn here is structure, not slavery. If people take Saturn here to slavery, then there would be a lot of death of infants. Unfortunately, United States Saturn through the fifth house can be death of infants, or orphans. But it's only if there is slavery. Okay, I addressed this when Saturn was in Pisces. People were trying to birth children, and I'm like, no, that's not compatible with. These children are not compatible with industrial society. They are the Nick Drakes of the world. And so, okay, when Nick Drake was singing about the city, it was said, down below, you're on your own. And that was the depression, because his mother in her birth was in depression, and that affected him as an infant. But also the 27 Club, or the Saturn Return Club, Pisces was extremely sensitive to that, and it was about industrial society. With Aries, it's about zero rape society. Aries, Mars, genitals. Aries, the mind and the consciousness and the I am and the sense of self. Why the biggest mantra for Aries is live and let live? Rape negates that. Um, and Saturn can mean the death of, which was, yeah. Or alternatively, it can be the restriction on at best it is the restrictions and structures that and dedications that create zero rape society that has sense of self, that individuals around the world, at best it's the abolitionist movement. And by the way, Neptune in Aries was associated with the abolitionist movement. Okay, the difference between abolishing slavery in the United States and abolitionist is for all the world. People are not ready for that. There's gonna be a big war. Okay. Um, yeah, we ran out of freedom eggs. There weren't even freedom eggs. Just to think about the fact that I live in a place where, in a radius of several kilometers from me, I cannot think about a person that grows chicken where I could buy eggs from. And even when we talk about feeding chicken or feeding animals, to be able to travel, we can't have a homestead. We need to be able to enjoy the naturally growing fruits and vegetables. Maybe fish a fish, or like it should, it's supposed to be simple. Taurus calls us to simplify our life, and anything going through any Mars sign is also calling us to simplify things. Okay? Scorpio is simplify by eliminating. If you have Mars in Scorpio, it's going to activate that Mars in Scorpio. Um, Aries is by inventing. Yeah. Now, the trouble with Aries is that people might think that they can invent people that will do the job for them. No. When does somebody, if somebody learns to do your job, they are going to have their own. Think about Da Vinci and Verrocchio. Da Vinci was learning to draw faces. Verrocchio was an amazing painter. Okay? He was an amazing painter. Da Vinci had a different style of painting. A lot of people are like, oh, he was surpassing Verrocchio. He had a different style of painting. He painted with softness, or Verrocchio was painting with in different expression. Oh, but the details, but the this, but that. Okay, Da Vinci had his own style. Everybody's gonna disagree with me, and I'm like, no, Da Vinci painted portraits and would later paint the portraits of the people, both the people that were the patrons, and he was funded by the Medicis that rose to power from being an exchange counter to a banking dynasty that erected the Pope and the scientists that argued with the Pope and Da Vinci. Da Vinci was a timestamp of the Renaissance that expressed itself through Da Vinci. Okay, you can never hold back spring. People are creating people even by cloning. You think about how much time and dedication it takes to develop a technique of cloning a person. Just imagine it was done with love. And of course, it has a life of its own. Nothing is here to serve us, nor are we servants. Okay? When I was talking about stewardship or picking from the tree, there was a tree, it was filled with fruit. Hey, I like that fruit. Was I serving the tree? Well, it is serving the tree. Was I doing that as an act of service. Well, I like these tiny oranges. I'm gonna bring it home and my mother is gonna make juice out of them. Okay, simple. Am I harming the tree? No. It's filled with fruit. Easier to maintain its ecosystem if somebody picks some of the fruit. Okay? Very simple. And there's another part of Aries. Aries is very known saying, I fiercely disagree with what you say, but I would risk my life to make sure you're able to say what you say. And as a paraphrase for that, when it comes to this war, if I had a gun and somebody would try to rape you, I would shoot that person to death. But would I need to later shoot you to death? Okay? It's a question we're going to have to ask ourselves because this new consciousness that's coming to the world, whether with Neptune in Aries, Uranus in Gemini, is basically new forms of consciousness or ingress of consciousness to another domain. Um, is completely different. If anybody would talk about astral encounters, maybe an Aquarius, yes, but um, our beliefs as manifestation before 2012, I'm not talking about the time when Neptune was in Sag, because Sag is also ruled by Jupiter. Then people would probably say, well, maybe mentally, maybe the nervous system. You know how it works with Aquarius, it has a scientific explanation. Or maybe it's some aliens before we'd say, oh, focus in our beliefs in that particular direction. By the way, Saturn was trying to collapse the frequency of Jupiter. Um, um, when people talk about abolitionists, it seems like, oh, that's an idea that was, you know, we are in those times. And I gave the credit to the relevant videos in my previous episodes. We are in those times. Now, when there are global secret societies that are based on slavery and rape, um, and okay, they're based on slavery and rape, and they try to give people commands to rape or to enslave, okay? Without rape, there is no slavery, okay? It's life energy, that's what they want to harvest. And without slavery, there is no rape because the desire is to enslave one or to control one. Anything that's based on that is now set to collapse. It's going to be, people are going to feel persecuted. Okay, you cannot say blood libels in a context where people are raped or enslaved. Nor can you hold a position that certain people were meant to serve your people and not have it backfire or backlash. There are certain things, and Saturn begins at the end of Pisces with the scriptures, particularly because as atheistic people, we do, atheistic people don't read the scriptures all day. So, and even the people that read the scriptures all day, they're exposed to the same. You know how they read this? What was that? Baba Sali. Thank you. Um, and Saturn in Pisces is like, wait a second, what is that line you say? Man and woman were born equal in the shape of God. He made them. Then somebody out of the chest of the man is born. Okay, the man, we call it like it's the cell that is. Where is that equal woman? He punished the snake. Wait a second, snake, snake. Kundalini. Why did he punish Kundalini? It's life energy. We try to enslave people, but they can't say it. So it's not the Bible. What do you know about religion? You open a book, you read, and you continue to read. So he accepted blood sacrifice, but not of animal, but not grain. Oh, is it? Oh, well, grain causes inflammation. No, back then it didn't cause inflammation. It was not. People were not sensitive to gluten back then. Okay. Why didn't he accept the grain? Well, Cain, he killed his Abel, and then they did. Come on, go on with life. Come on. So he created cows. One guy kills his brother, and then he exiles them both. It's kind of like what they do to Israel and Palestine. Um, hey, you're the people that says people should come close to religion. They should take on one parashat shavua, one Saturday. Yeah, okay, evacuate a Saturday and read the Bible. Let's see what they're talking about. But why don't you have women imams? A lot of them are women, but we can't say. Why can't you say it? Oh, they're clone. Okay, then they're clone, whatever that is. But why do they all dress like men if they're a lot of them are women? Yeah, because women, women are whores. That's the brotherhood. Uh, Now, with the exposures of things, there are many things that, you know, think about a time where you had to explain something that was very weird. Okay? Now, within the secret societies, people fear to be expelled if they are not Epsteining. Outside the secret societies, they're supposed to be expelled if they are Epsteining. It's very weird. But nobody's allowed to talk about that. Well, it's not, it's an impossible living condition. Shirley, why don't you treat that wisdom tooth? That's, well, first of all, I have to have several dates with the banking system, and it's fucking exhausting. Secondly, I don't know where to make the money to treat that. And if I make the money to treat that, it's another bureaucracy that I don't know how to deal with. And I'm not even able to withdraw with that to save my life because I nearly died several times to get to where I am today. And I don't know which of the doctors was raping children, and it's a treason cult, and they are meant to hurt people. So I really don't know what to do. I can gargle coconut oil meanwhile and tend to that. I can't say the fact that I actually tried to go to a doctor and I see that they hacked his nervous system and he was harming my gums where the plaque could go into the heart. It's like you see, like the Sefer talks about it, you see a person and you see another consciousness with it right now. Everybody knows these people are in a personality cult. Nobody actually can talk about that. And so people go to coat their teeth to hide that. Okay, so think about those situations where people are going to have to address or explain things that they didn't, that they don't really know how to talk about, or that they didn't want exposed, or midway into watching a channeling that Light Sefa had around that. Um, it touches on that issue. But if I take it from the entire thing is that those ingresses are going to both show us abundance where we haven't seen it before and sovereignty where we haven't seen it before. And then they're not asking us to completely dissociate from the world, depending on the person, but the world needs to align. Particularly those that have been keeping the people that have tended to things from seeing results because it would expose something that they were trying to do to those people. Um, Particularly, they feel, and this is what I'm seeing, that it's going to be very explosive because if a person is, you know, if it reached the point where going to work is not really meaning that anybody will see their salary in their own hands, they're trying to look for a residence doesn't really yielding even if one finds a place in a contract and they can be, you know, raped in their own apartment, even astrally, then people have to talk. Why don't you do certification? Well, because I don't want to rape children. Like if I took a break from academia and nothing has shown to me that it's not like that there, there's no point to try to do the same thing and expect a different result. And that result nearly assassinated me. Okay, and there are going to be a lot of such incidents. All the while, people try to instill smugly social credit score when they are the villains, they are the offenders, and trying to limit a person's access to banking on the basis of frequency that they've been trying to collapse or their course of action when they are the offenders. So, of course, something's gonna go boom. If I condense matter, how do we make an A bomb? Okay? For the nuclear radiation, we need to create tremendous pressure to dissolve the atom, and then the opposite of that is tremendous pressure on the atom to dissolve the atom. It's the back and forth of pressures, and that pressure cooker on society doesn't create slavery. It creates a bomb level of explosions. Okay, my mama told me the Iranians have a missile that can completely bomb the entire country. One missile. I'm like, I know of only one missile that can do that. But then Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but we already had that in United States exploding in the Arctic as well. So, oh, another thing I saw in the Arctic, things exploding, like infrastructure of mining the minerals in the Arctic, but also something that goes to the depth of the ocean, being going boom. Hey, I was born in 1984. There was radiation from something in India that nobody talks about because everybody remembers Chernobyl. So I guess I have the ability to clearly see or predict nuclear radiation explosion. Like, what's your superpower? I can predict Chernobyl's. And by the way, one of the people I spent the most time knowing, the closest, was a person that was affected by the Chernobyl. He was born later in 1992. Um, there were many rituals that were done around that, so I'll never know. Um, anyway, think about the people before the Me Too. They were expecting their endeavors to go one way, and then suddenly the people speak and they're believed. 2019, I was saying the children will speak to a psychologist that was trying